atomic wind always felt different from inside a Vertibird. Thin, cold, and restless, pushing against the hull in uneven breaths. But inside my T-45D, sealed and anchored into the crash harness, the turbulence barely registered. My visor showed only clean HUD readouts, the faint outlines of my squad below, and the grid of downtown DC passing under us in broken concrete and shadow. This was supposed to be a straightforward purge operation. 2 Brotherhood fire teams on the ground, knights and initiates sweeping block by block through a mutant-dense district. 1 Overwatch bird in the air. Mine. Standard doctrine. Suppress. Spot. Burn the nests out. Overwatch 1. Confirm visuals, the pilot called over comms. Knight Kessler, I replied. I have eyes on Alpha and Bravo teams. Movement south of them, multiple heat signatures. Below us, super mutants were converging, charging out of shattered storefronts and gutted apartments, pushing the fire teams into a tight formation. Alpha, adjust left flank, I said. Mutants incoming on your 2 o'clock. Laser fire flashed up from the street. The Brotherhood line shifted cleanly, experienced knights guiding initiates through the chaos. We'd done this dance 100 times. But this time, something else moved behind the mutants. Large, heavy. Wrong. Even from this altitude, the tremor registered in my HUD. Pilot, hold pattern, I said. I want a better look. We banked slightly, the city tilting under us. And then I saw it. A massive silhouette breaking through a collapsed metro entrance. A super mutant behemoth. Contact. Behemoth on the field, I announced. The ground teams reacted instantly. Calls for reinforcements, for repositioning. The pilot clipped into a lower pass to get visual confirmation. Damn, he muttered. That thing's bigger than the usual stock. It's enraged, I said. Look at the pacing. It was barreling toward our lines, smashing derelict cars aside like toys. The Brotherhood poured fire into it, but the creature only roared back, deafening even from the Vertibird's altitude. Overwatch 1, divert air fire? The pilot asked. Negative. Too much Brotherhood in the line of fire. We hold position and feed targeting data. But the Behemoth wasn't the only problem. Mutant squads were flanking from the high-rise district, nesting behavior, coordinated pushes, more numbers than expected. This district is hotter than recon suggested, I said. Alpha, tighten formation. Bravo, fall back half a block. Repeat, half a block. The comms crackled. Gunfire, shouting. The ground team's tension rising fast. And then, a warning tone flashed in my HUD. Heat spike, rear quadrant. Pilot, I see it! Too late. A projectile, something big, improvised, hurled from street level, slammed into the Vertibird's left side. The impact threw the craft sideways, alarms, screaming, metal twisting. I grabbed the internal harness rail as the cabin pitched violently. We've lost stabilizer control, the pilot shouted. The world spun. Sky, building. Sky again. The pilot fought the controls, dragging the bird away from a direct drop, angling it toward a structure. Brace, I yelled. We hit the 14th floor of a high-rise. Metal shrieked. Glass exploded. The hull tore open as we plowed halfway into the building. Then everything went still. Smoke. Dust. Silence. Only one thing moved. My armor's chest plate, rising and falling as I forced air into my lungs. The pilot didn't move at all. My hood flashed red warnings across the visor. Crash harness. Locked structural integrity. Compromised cockpit. Breach. But I was alive, and I could hear them. Heavy footsteps. Wet breaths. Snarls echoing through the dark, ruined floor. Super mutants. A nest. I unlatched myself from the wreckage, stepped out into the smoke-filled office floor, and raised my laser rifle. This wasn't Overwatch anymore. This was survival. The high-rise's 14th floor looked less like an office and more like a ribcage. Exposed beams jutting like bones, drywall peeled back in strips, the whole space warped by impact and mutant occupation. Smoke drifted lazily through broken cubicles. Papers fluttered across the floor like startled birds. And somewhere beyond the haze, heavy breathing, wet, thick, hungry. I swept my laser rifle across the wreckage, boots crunching glass under me. My motion tracker flickered with unstable pings, too much debris interference, but the audio told the truth well enough. A low growl vibrated through the wall ahead, then another, closer. The first mutant stepped into view, hunched under a dangling light fixture. It was huge, even for their kind. Skin stretched tight over bulging muscle, mottled with old scars. One eye was swollen shut, the other locked on my visor. "Metal, man," it growled, dragging a length of rebar behind it. I took aim. It charged. Laser fire lanced across the floor, burning holes into its chest, but momentum carried it straight into me. The collision slammed my back into a cracked support beam. Pain spiked through the armor seals around my ribs. The mutant roared into my faceplate, breath fogging the visor. I shoved upward, pushing its head back just enough to get the muzzle under its chin. One shot. It fell at my feet in a smoking heap. Two more silhouettes burst from the cubicles to my left, one with a rusted stop sign cleaver, the other carrying a corpse like a shield. I fired on instinct. The corpse dropped, burning. The mutant behind it didn't even flinch. It rushed me with surprising speed. I stepped aside at the last second, caught its arm, and hurled it into a support column. Before it could recover, I fired a sustained beam into its chest until it slumped. The stop sign wielding one was already mid-swing. The blade screeched across my shoulder plate, sending sparks across the floor. I caught its wrist, twisted, and slammed my armored fist into its face. Bone cracked. The mutant staggered, then fell as another shot burned through its skull. Silence returned. Brief, brittle, uneasy. I checked my ammo readout. 32 shots remaining. Not ideal. I stepped deeper into the floor, past overturned desks and blood-soaked carpeting. Pieces of torn clothing littered the ground. Civilian scraps. A whimper echoed from somewhere in the walls. Human. "Hold on," I murmured, adjusting my visor's audio gain. The sound came again. Thin, desperate. I followed it to a maintenance closet. The door's bottom corner was bent outward, like something had clawed at it from the inside. I pulled it open. A man was curled in the back, filthy, dehydrated, shaking uncontrollably. He recoiled at first, then froze when he saw my insignia. "Brotherhood," he whispered. Please get me out." "You're safe," I said. "Can you walk?" He nodded, barely. I guided him out, positioning him behind me. Then, a guttural roar erupted deeper down the hallway. Heavy footsteps pounded toward us. "Stay behind me," I ordered. A super mutant burst through a flimsy office door, swinging a splintered desk leg like a club. I fired. It screamed. It kept coming. I stepped forward, pivoted, and drove my armored shoulder into its gut, dropping it. A final shot silenced it for good. The civilian stared at me, horrified, traumatized, but alive. "More people?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "Up. Higher. They take them up." Of course they did. Higher floors, less accessible, more privacy. Mutant nests always evolved the same way. "Stay close," I said. We move up. We stepped into the stairwell. Somewhere above I heard cages rattling and screaming. Human. Not for long. I tightened my grip on the rifle. "Let's go." We climbed toward the 15th floor, toward whatever the mutants kept up there. The door to the 15th floor was jammed, bent inward, smeared with something dark. I forced it open, metal scraping against metal, until the frame finally gave way. The smell hit first. Super mutant dens always carried the same stench, but this one had layers. Rot. Blood. Gunpowder. Human fear soaked so deeply into the carpet I could almost taste it through the respirator. The survivor behind me gagged. "Stay close," I said quietly, "and keep your eyes forward." The hallway ahead was dim, lit only by a few flickering overhead panels. Shredded curtains hung off broken window frames. Furniture was stacked haphazardly, some pieces blood-stained, others burned or shattered, and threaded through the silence. Crying, multiple voices, muffled, terrified. I followed the sound. A set of large double doors, once part of a conference suite, had been torn open, hinges twisted like soft metal. Inside, the room was vast, shadow-drenched, illuminated only by a few hanging bulbs the mutants had rigged up. That's where I found them. Cages. 8 of them. Constructed from scavenged rebar, twisted steel bed frames, even filing cabinet rails. Most were empty. One was not. 4 survivors huddled inside, 3 clinging to each other, shuddering, and a 4th lying motionless in their arms, breathing shallowly. The moment I stepped in, the conscious ones jerked back like startled animals. A woman with sunken eyes grasped the bars. "You, Brotherhood? Oh, thank God. Please, please get us out. They took everyone else." "We saw them drag people away," the scavenger beside her whispered. "We thought they were coming back for us next." The nearly unconscious man let out a weak groan. I raised a hand to calm them. "Back from the door." They stumbled away from the bars. I gripped the cage latch, welded shut with a thick seam of molten metal, and pulled. The metal resisted. My armor joints strained, plates grinding. Then the seam snapped, tearing free with a sharp metallic crack. The cage door swung open. "Stay close behind me," I ordered. "Single file. Don't break formation." They nodded, pale and shaking. A sound came from behind me, a heavy one, low breathing, snarling. I turned. A super mutant blocked the doorway, shoulders nearly grazing the frame. Its skin shimmered with sweat and dried blood. A jagged piece of concrete rebar jutted through one of its forearms like a trophy. Its eyes found the survivors. "Soft meat!" Then it charged. I shoved the civilians behind me and stepped into the mutant's path. The impact rattled through my armor as it slammed into me, swinging the embedded concrete like a club. I caught its wrist, twisted sharply, and fired point-blank twice into its chest. It barely slowed. It roared in my face and grabbed my torso plate, trying to lift me off the ground. My boots gouged into the carpet as I pushed forward, forcing it back step by step until its heel caught on a broken projector mount. Off balance, I seized the opportunity. I drove my armored fist into its throat, once, twice, until the 3rd blow made it stumble. Before it could recover, I pressed the muzzle of my laser rifle under its jaw and fired. The mutant dropped instantly, collapsing in a smoking heap. Silence, except for the survivor's ragged breathing behind me. The woman whispered, Are there more?" "Yes," I said, and they heard that. I guided them out of the cage room and back into the hallway. The dying man was carried by the caravan guard, and the woman, both struggling under his weight, but refusing to let go. "Vertibird 2, I called into my comm. "I have 4 survivors, moving to the roof. Static. Then, copy. Kessler, we're inbound. 20 minutes. 20 minutes in a mutant lair was a lifetime, but it was the only lifeline we had. I checked the stairwell. Clear for now." "Stay close," I repeated. "If I fire, get behind cover. If you hear anything running, move when I tell you. Understand?" The scavenger nodded rapidly. The woman held the dying man's arm. The caravan guard tightened his grip. We ascended. As we climbed, the building groaned around us. Structural stress, shifting rebar. The distant thud of massive footsteps higher up. Something big was moving floors above. Probably many somethings. But we were committed now. Just a few more floors, just a little longer. And the roof might mean survival. The stairwell felt narrower the higher we climbed. The kind of narrowing that wasn't structural, but psychological. Every footstep, every echo, every shifting groan of the building told the same story. The mutants were moving, and they were moving toward us. The survivors stayed tight behind me, breaths coming shallow and fast. The dying man slipped in and out of consciousness as the caravan guard and woman hauled him upward one step at a time. Halfway to the 16th floor landing, a deep vibration rolled through the concrete, rattling dust loose from the walls. The scavenger whispered, "What was that?" I didn't answer. The 16th floor access door bulged inward as something slammed it from the far side. Once. Twice. The third hit punched a dent straight into the metal. "Back," I ordered, guiding the survivors down 2 steps. "Stay tight against the wall." The door buckled. Then it tore open. A super mutant burst into the stairwell, massive, frothing, swinging a length of pipe with jagged metal wiring coiled around it. It locked eyes on the civilians instantly. I stepped between them in a single armored stride. The mutant roared and leapt the final steps toward me. I fired mid-jump, 2 shots ripping through its abdomen, but its weight still crashed into me like a freight car. We slammed together into the wall. Concrete cracked behind my armor. The pipe scraped along my helmet, sparks skipping off the visor. The blow disoriented me for a half-second, just long enough for the mutant to rear back for another swing. I caught its wrist and forced it upward, pinning the arm against the wall. The mutant roared again, hot breath fogging my visor from inches away. I twisted its arm hard, felt the dislocation, then drove the butt of my rifle into its faceplate. Once. Twice. The third strike turned the roar into a choke. I jammed the rifle barrel under its jaw and fired. The body slumped down the stairs, thudding limb over limb before coming to rest in a heap. "Move," I said. "Now." The civilians wasted no time. We pushed upward. 16th floor, the Hall of Horrors. The 16th floor was chaos frozen in place. Torn drywall, crushed cubicles, blood smeared in wide arcs across the carpet, and bodies. Some ripped apart, some arranged, some simply abandoned where they fell. The woman covered the dying man's face as they passed a man nailed to the wall with rebar through both shoulders. The scavenger couldn't stop staring. "Eyes front," I warned him. "Do not look into rooms. Do not break formation." A distant roar shook the ceiling above us. The metal beams groaned. Something enormous moved on the 17th floor. The civilians huddled closer. We moved deeper. Halfway down the hall, 2 mutants sprinted out from opposite directions. An ambush. Down. The survivors hit the carpet behind a broken desk as I opened fire. One mutant fell immediately, laser bursts tearing through its chest. The second closed distance fast, swinging a curved chunk of metal sharpened into a cleaver. It hacked at my shoulder. The blade screeched across my armor, deflecting. I drove into its center mass, slamming it into the wall, and shot it twice through the sternum. It dropped. Silence again. Momentary. Dangerous. "We're close," I told the survivors. "Stay behind me." We moved to the stairwell door, but just as I reached for the handle, a booming crash echoed from above, like something massive had lunged across the floor and hit a wall with its full weight. The scavenger whispered, Is that the big one?" "No," I said. The woman swallowed hard. "Then what is it?" "Something we're not waiting around to meet." I forced the door open, checked the corners, and pushed them upward. 17th floor, the last push. The 17th floor felt different the instant we stepped in. Warmer, louder, more resonant with mutant movement. They were mobilizing, hunting. Our footsteps had barely touched the carpet when a super mutant barreled from the far hallway, roaring wildly. I fired, shots burning through its arm, but it didn't stop. It reached me, swinging a makeshift mace. The blow collided with my helmet and sent my HUD spinning into static. I staggered but stayed upright. The mutant reared back for another swing, but a sound rose behind it. Another roar, deeper, closer. Two more mutants sprinted from a side passage, ambush on top of an ambush. I positioned myself between the survivors and the charging trio. "This will be loud," I said. Then the hallway erupted. Laser fire lit the walls in flashes of red and gold. The first mutant fell mid-run, collapsing over a desk. The second reached me, slamming its fists into my chest plate. But I planted my feet, held the line, and blasted a shot straight through its throat. The third had grabbed a filing cabinet and hurled it toward the civilians. I pivoted, planted a boot into the cabinet mid-flight, and knocked it aside, sending it crashing harmlessly into the wall. Before the mutant could react, I fired. One precise shot. It dropped. Smoke curled up from the cooling laser scars across the carpet. The civilians were pale, shaking uncontrollably, but alive. "All right," I said. "One more, then the roof." We moved toward the final stairwell. The building trembled again, a massive presence shifting overhead. I didn't look up. I already knew we were out of time. "Stay tight," I said, raising my rifle. "We're finishing this." We climbed the last set of stairs, toward the roof, toward evac, toward daylight, and toward whatever waited in the final stretch. The final door stood at the top of the stairwell, bent, dented, marked with handprints that were far too large to be human. The survivors clustered behind me, breaths trembling, the dying man hanging limp between the woman and the caravan guard. I pushed the door open. Cold air hit immediately, cleaner than anything inside the building. The rooftop stretched out ahead of us in cracked tar and broken ventilation units. A half-collapsed helipad slanted toward the street. The ruins of downtown DC sprawled in every direction beyond the ledge. For a moment, the survivors just stood there, as if they'd forgotten what the sky looked like. But the moment didn't last. Hulking footsteps thundered up the stairwell behind us. "Go!" I barked. They ran, stumbling across the roof, keeping low, clutching each other, dragging the injured man as best they could. I planted myself between them and the door. The metal bulged once, twice. Then a super mutant slammed through. A huge one, with a length of rebar wound in barbed wire. It spotted the survivors immediately and bellowed, "Flesh!" I opened fire. Laser bursts, carved smoking holes through its torso, but adrenaline made it reckless, unstoppable. It charged anyway. I met it head on. The impact rattled through my armor, but I held the line and forced it back toward a ventilation stack. It swung the rebar club. I redirected it off my forearm plate and pinned the mutant against the metal housing. One shot under the jaw ended it. Another roar rose from the stairwell. Two more mutants burst through, smaller but fast. I stepped forward instead of back. The best defense was aggression. My rifle hummed hot in my hands as I fired, burning through one's thigh. It fell screaming. The other vaulted over it and landed swinging a snapped piece of piping. The blow rang across my shoulder plate. I slammed an armored elbow into its face and fired point blank into its chest. The roof fell silent again, except for the wind and the distant roar of the Behemoth still rampaging below. The survivors huddled near the far side of the roof. The scavenger was crying now, quietly. The woman held the dying man's head in her lap. The caravan guard kept scanning the edge, as if expecting more mutants to crawl over it. I keyed my comm. "Vertibird 2, Knight Kessler. Survivors secured. We are on the roof. Request immediate extraction. Static. Then, the greatest sound I could have hoped for. Thwop, 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 rotor blades. The evac Vertibird crested the edge of the roof, spotlight sweeping across the survivors before circling once and descending in a dusty spiral. It touched down hard, skid scraping across cracked concrete, side door sliding open. A fully armored knight hopped out and waved. "Get them aboard! Move!" I guided the civilians toward the craft. The knight caught the dying man under the arms, hauling him inside with practiced ease. The others clambered in after him, sobbing with relief. The woman reached for me. "Aren't you coming?" I didn't answer, because I already knew the situation below. I could see it from up here. The Brotherhood line buckling, knights being pushed back block by block, laser fire glancing off the Behemoth's hide as it advanced through the wreckage. If that thing broke their formation, none of them were making it home. Not today. Not any day. The rescue knight in the Vertibird door looked at me, visor reflecting the burning city. "Kessler, what are you doing? Get in!" I stepped away from the Vertibird, one pace, then another. The wind from the rotors whipped across my armor as I moved toward the rooftop edge, raised my rifle, and sighted down toward the battlefield. The knight jumped out after me, boots hitting the roof hard. "Kessler, damn it! Don't tell me you're..." I pointed at the street below. The Behemoth hurled a crushed car into a storefront, sending two knights diving for cover. "Look," I said. He did. And he went completely still, his helmet angled toward the battlefield, posture tightening inside the armor. "All right," he muttered. "I see it." Another roar shook the high-rise. "Pilot!" he shouted over comms. "Lift off! Get them out!" The Vertibird pilot hesitated. "You two staying?" "Yes," we said in unison. "Understood. Ascending." The craft rose, carrying the survivors into the sky, banking westward toward the citadel. The rooftop became quiet again. Just the wind, the distant gunfire, and the two of us standing at the edge of a war zone with nowhere to go but forward. The knight powered his rifle and stepped up beside me. "They've got one advantage now," he said. I nodded, sighting down on the Behemoth's massive form below. But this fight isn't over. Not even close. The Behemoth charged. The ground teams braced. And from the roof of a broken high-rise in downtown D.C., we opened fire.